I'm a longtime barber, 20 years behind the chair, razor in hand, listening to stories that most folks wouldn't believe. In this little shop of mine, I've heard it all. CEOs burdened with silence, fathers trying to find themselves again, and men who thought they'd lost everything, until a woman walked into their life with nothing but hope. These stories, I don't make them up. They're shared with me by the people who sit in my chair, each shave leaving behind a little more than just stubble. And with their permission, I share them here, with names changed, but emotions untouched. Today's story is about Jace Donovan, a tech genius, a billionaire CEO, a man who built an AI empire that was changing the world. After losing his wife in a tragic accident, Jace lived for two things: his company and his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Life was logical, controlled until a woman appeared, elegant, empathetic, and soon she was everything he thought he'd been missing. But love, in Jace's case, wasn't love at all. It was engineered, a beautiful trap designed to bring him to his knees. And the one who spotted it first? Not a lawyer, not a security expert, but Lily, his brilliant little girl with a coder's mind and a heart that refused to be fooled. Let me hand it off now to Jace himself, because the story you're about to hear begins not with a wedding, but with a whisper in a crowded auditorium, just moments before the world he knew was set to explode. The stage lights blaze. Thousands of eyes are fixed on one man standing at the pinnacle of the world, Jace Donovan, a tech prodigy, a billionaire CEO, the architect of an AI empire poised to change the future of humanity. In this moment, he has it all: fame, power, and a perfect future waiting for him. But Jace doesn't know that in the very crowd that celebrates him, a ticking time bomb is about to explode. A bomb made not of gunpowder, but of a lie so exquisitely woven it was perfect. Just below the front row, a tiny action takes place, but it's about to trigger a seismic event. His 10-year-old daughter, Lily, whispers quietly into the ear of the colossal head of security sitting beside her, "It's time." Time for what? This is not just a product launch. This is the stage for the judgment of one of the most audacious and sophisticated scams in the history of Silicon Valley. A plan targeting not just Jace's multi-billion-dollar fortune, but something far more valuable: his heart. To understand this fateful moment, we must go back 3 months, to when Jace Donovan believed he had found the final piece of his life's puzzle. Cassandra Reed, a name as beautiful as a promise, a woman with an ethereal beauty and a soul that seemed perfectly in sync with his. And then, the greatest gift of all arrived. Cassandra announced she was carrying his child, the child that would complete the family he had dreamed of ever since the tragedy of his wife's death. It was a perfect picture, too perfect. Because Cassandra Reed didn't just walk into his life, she infiltrated it. She was an architect of deceit, and the non-existent baby was the Trojan horse she used to breach the strongest walls of the Donovan Dynamics empire. How could a man who built an empire on logic, data, and infallible algorithms be about to bet his entire future on something he couldn't verify? Trust. But there was one person who saw the cracks in that perfect matrix. Not a business rival, not a high-powered attorney, but a 10-year-old girl with a passion for clean code and a truth that cannot be bent. Data never lies. In today's video, we will peel back every layer of this scheme of the century. We will follow a 10-year-old girl as she uses the very tools her father created to hunt a digital ghost. We will witness how a digital honeypot was set to force the predators out into the open. And finally, we will answer the question: when faced with a lie that could destroy everything, do you trust your heart or do you trust the data? Buckle up, because the story you're about to see will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust and betrayal in the modern world. Let's begin. 3 months before the ticking time bomb was activated, Jace Donovan's life was a symphony of order and success. Every morning, he woke up in his glass and steel penthouse, looking down on a world he had helped to shape. His empire, Donovan Dynamics, wasn't just a company. It was a testament to his sharp intellect, where complex algorithms and artificial intelligence could solve seemingly impossible problems. But there was one algorithm Jace still couldn't perfect: the algorithm for family happiness. Ever since his wife died in a car accident years ago, his world had shrunk, revolving around two great loves: his company and his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily wasn't just Jace's daughter. She was a miniature version of him. While other kids played with dolls or kicked a soccer ball, Lily found joy in debugging a Python script or optimizing the flight path of a drone they had built together. They communicated in a shared language of logic and creativity. On a Saturday evening in their home lab, Jace said, "Lily, what if we added an emotion recognition module to the assistant bot? It could learn to react based on our tone of voice." Lily, without looking up from her screen, replied, "Good idea, Dad, but we'll need a large and diverse data set for training. Otherwise, it'll have cognitive bias, just like people." Jace smiled. This was his world, a world that was safe and predictable. And then Cassandra Reed walked in. They met at a charity gala. She wasn't starstruck by his fortune or the public's adoration. Instead, she approached him and asked a question that made him pause. "Your AI can diagnose diseases, but can it ever learn to empathize with a patient's pain?" That's when Jace's defensive walls began to crack. Cassandra was an art curator, a world of emotion and abstract beauty, a complete opposite to his binary world. She filled a void he didn't even know he had. She listened to his crazy ideas, understood his pressure, and most importantly, she adored Lily. She didn't try to be her mother, but a friend, admiring Lily's tech projects with a genuine fascination. The picture was almost perfect. And then, one March evening, over a candlelit dinner in their dining room, Cassandra, with tears in her eyes and a trembling smile, placed Jace's hand on her stomach and whispered, "We're going to have a complete family." For Jace, it was the final line of code to complete the happiness program. All the logic, all the skepticism of a seasoned entrepreneur vanished, replaced by a primal emotion, hope. He was going to have a son or another daughter. Lily was going to have a sibling. This house would be filled with laughter again. But in this house of logic and numbers, there was one variable that followed its own rules. To Lily Donovan, emotions were a complex system, but data was always clear. Her love for her father was just as logical. She wanted him to be safe. And so she began to do what she did best, analyze. Not with jealousy, but with the curiosity of a scientist, Lily began running a check protocol on Cassandra. It all started with something small. Cassandra often told stories of her travels. One day, she posted a beautiful photo with the caption, "Missing Paris." Lily, while helping Cassandra organize her digital photo albums, curiously checked the photo's metadata, a habit her father had taught her for checking copyrights. The ICSIF data was clear. The camera was an iPhone 15 Pro, but the geolocation wasn't in France. It was taken at a professional studio in Los Angeles just 6 weeks prior. A system error, an anomaly. Lily thought to herself, maybe she just reposted an old photo. But that didn't stop her from digging deeper. She noticed that Cassandra's social media accounts had only been created about 8 months ago, right before she met her father. The activity history was nearly blank, like a video game character with a main storyline but no side quests. The decisive blow came late one night. Using an open-source facial recognition program she had customized herself, Lily ran Cassandra's image through public internet news archives. Thousands of results appeared, but one of them made her hold her breath. A business article from 7 years ago about the collapse of a small tech company called Vance Innovations. In the group photo of the leadership team, in the back was a younger but unmistakable woman. It was Cassandra. But the name in the caption below the photo wasn't Cassandra Reed. It was Catherine Vance. Lily zoomed in on the face on the screen. The same eyes, the same smile, but behind them was a completely different story. A story not included in the data Cassandra had provided. A massive security breach in her family's perfect operating system. And Lily knew that a breach like this, if not patched in time, could bring down the entire system. In the silence of the Silicon Valley night, a truth was unearthed. On Lily Donovan's computer screen, two faces, one of Cassandra Reed and one of Catherine Vance, existed in parallel, like a glitch in the Matrix. For a 10-year-old girl, this could have been a terrifying discovery. But Lily was no ordinary girl. Her father had taught her that when faced with a complex problem, you don't react with emotion. You analyze it. And that's exactly what she did. For the next 2 days, Lily acted like a true cybersecurity analyst. She didn't cry or run to her father immediately. Instead, she quietly collected, organized, and cross-referenced. She created an encrypted file containing a screenshot of the old article, links to Cassandra's newly created social media accounts, and a detailed analysis of the contradictions in the photo's geolocation data. She even wrote a small script to generate a timeline chart, showing that Cassandra's digital footprint had only appeared abruptly just before she met Jace. Everything was presented cleanly, logically, irrefutably. She was building an indictment, not with words, but with cold, hard data. On a Tuesday afternoon, Lily walked into her father's home office. Jace was smiling, having just finished a call with Cassandra. He looked up. "Hey, princess, what's up?" Lily said nothing. She quietly placed a tablet on his expensive oak desk and swiped the screen to open the file she had prepared. Jace looked down. His smile faded as he scrolled through the evidence. He saw the photo, the name, Catherine Vance, the timeline chart. Silence filled the room, broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. At first, a wave of irritation rose in Jace. This was Cassandra's privacy. This was the woman he loved. "Lily," he began, his voice a little stern, "this is an invasion of privacy. People have the right to change their names to start a new life. This article is very old." Lily stood her ground, her gaze unwavering. "A name change is possible, Dad, but a brand new digital identity created from scratch 8 months ago, combined with misleading location data on photos and a connection to one of your past business rivals, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern." That sentence, uttered by a 10-year-old, carried the weight of a seasoned attorney. Jace looked into his daughter's eyes, the same as his own, and he saw not jealousy or resentment. He saw logic, truth. Lily turned to leave, leaving the tablet on the desk. Before she walked out the door, she said one simple sentence, one that Jace had taught her as a child. "Data doesn't lie, Dad." Jace was left alone in the silence. He stared at the screen. Beside it was a digital photo frame displaying a picture of him and Cassandra, both smiling happily on a yacht. On one side, the happiness he craved. On the other, the naked truth. The genius CEO brain in him was screaming, warning of risks, patterns, anomalies. But the heart of a lonely man begged him to ignore it, to trust in love. That internal war raged for nearly an hour. In the end, it wasn't the heart, but the strategist's brain that won. He picked up the phone and hit a speed dial number. "Frank." Jace's voice was cold and decisive. "Yes, sir." The deep, reliable voice of Frank Miller came from the other end. "I need you to run a ghost protocol on Cassandra Reed. Off the books. Completely silent. I want everything. Financial history, associations, every call, every text. Leave no trace." After hanging up, Jace sat in the dark. He had activated his investigative machine. But there was another relationship that needed fixing. That evening, he went to Lily's room. She was sitting on her bed reading a book on cryptography. Jace sat down beside her, the air a bit awkward. "Lily," he began, "I'm sorry." Lily closed her book. "You didn't believe me." "It's not that I didn't believe you." Jace sighed, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "It's that I didn't want to believe the truth. I wanted a complete family so badly that I was willing to ignore the warning signs. I let hope become a blindfold. You were right to point it out. You acted like a brilliant analyst, while I just acted like a man in love. Thank you, Lily. Thank you for protecting me, even when I didn't want to be protected." Lily looked at her father, and for the first time in days, she smiled. She wrapped her arms around his neck. In that moment, they were no longer CEO and analyst. They were father and daughter, a team, an alliance, newly forged, ready to face the coming storm. And Jace knew that whatever the truth about Cassandra was, he wouldn't be facing it alone. A week went by. To the outside world, Jace Donovan was still a CEO basking in happiness, busy preparing for his wedding and the arrival of his first child. He still had dinner with Cassandra, still smiled, still held her hand, but every gesture was now calculated, every word a move in a chess game his opponent didn't even know had begun. Inside, he was waiting for the report from Frank Miller. And then, it came. The meeting didn't take place in the lavish penthouse office, but in a place known as the Vault, a high-tech security center deep beneath the Donovan Dynamics building, shielded from all electromagnetic waves and intrusion attempts. The room was cold, lit only by the blue glow of giant monitors. Frank Miller stood there, his face as calm as ever, but in his hand was a tablet containing the truth with the destructive force of a bomb. "What do we have, Frank?" Jace asked, his voice chillingly steady. Frank said nothing, merely swiping the screen. A complex diagram appeared, connecting photos, bank accounts, and call logs. "Sir," Frank began, his voice as cold as steel. "Her real identity, as Lily discovered, is Catherine Vance. But that's just the tip of the iceberg." Frank pointed to a series of financial transactions. For the past year, Catherine has received monthly payments totaling over $2 million from a shell company called Elysian Arts Consulting. This company has no actual business operations. "Where's the money coming from?" Jace asked, his eyes glued to the screen. "That shell company," Frank replied, "and this is where the first bomb dropped, is funded entirely by a subsidiary of Nexus Dynamics." Nexus Dynamics. The name was like a knife to Jace's chest. It was his biggest, most ruthless rival, a never-ending war between two tech titans. Frank continued, giving Jace no time to breathe. "Their plan isn't just personal revenge, sir. It's much bigger. According to our intel, Nexus is preparing for a hostile takeover, but they lack one thing: leverage, and Catherine is that leverage." Frank enlarged the timeline. "Look at the chronology. The pregnancy was announced right after our Prometheus project completed its final testing phase. The wedding was proposed to take place just 2 days before our official product launch. If the marriage happens, as your legal wife and the mother of your sole heir, Catherine would have access and legal claim to a significant portion of your stock and, more importantly, your intellectual property. The baby is their insurance policy." A cold chill ran down Jace's spine. This wasn't a simple romance scam. This was a high-level corporate espionage campaign. Every smile, every hug, every sweet word from Cassandra, "No, Catherine," was part of a pre-written script. She didn't love him. She was hunting him. The pain of personal betrayal was quickly replaced by another feeling, one more familiar to Jace. The cold fury of a general whose own headquarters had been attacked. He clenched his fists. "They turned my family into a battlefield, Frank." "Yes, sir," Frank replied, "and they underestimated our defenses." "They didn't underestimate our defenses," Jace said, an icy smile forming on his lips. "They didn't know our defenses existed." That night, Jace called Lily into the vault. The high-tech security room had now become their war room. Frank stood solemnly in a corner. Jace knelt before his daughter, placing both hands on her shoulders. "Lily, you were right, but this is much bigger than we thought." Jace explained everything to Lily, holding nothing back, using no softened words. He told her about Nexus Dynamics, about the takeover plan, about how Catherine was acting to destroy everything he had built. He spoke to her as a partner, an ally. Lily listened intently. Her eyes showed no fear. Instead, they lit up with intense focus. When Jace finished, she was silent for a moment, then said something that astonished both Jace and Frank. "If she's a spy looking for information," Lily said, "why don't we give her some?" Jace raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she continued, a programmer's mindset kicking in, "she's looking for a vulnerability to exploit, right? A weak point in the Prometheus project to report back to Nexus. So, let's build one for her. A digital honeypot, a fake backdoor, leading to a fake data repository designed to look completely real." Frank Miller looked at the 10-year-old with unconcealed admiration. Jace looked at his daughter, and the anger inside him melted away, replaced by infinite pride. They had tried to slide a Trojan horse into his city walls, but they didn't know he already had a genius strategist inside. "Frank," Jace said, standing up, "prep the engineering team. We have a new system to build." He turned to Lily. "Princess, I need you to design the interface. I want it to be the most perfect trap ever created." In the blue light of the security room, the three of them, the CEO, the ex-soldier, and the girl coder, huddled around a monitor. The counteroffensive had officially begun. In the days that followed, the vault became a hive of ceaseless activity. Jace had summoned his Ghost Team, a group of 4 elite cybersecurity engineers and programmers who had signed NDAs more ironclad than the law itself. They were told this was a top-level red team exercise, a test to find potential vulnerabilities in the system before the Prometheus launch. None of them, except for Jace and Frank, knew that the real objective wasn't to find a vulnerability, but to create one. The heart of this operation was Project Decoy. It was an isolated server, built to perfectly replicate the architecture of the core development server, and its soul was Lily Donovan. She worked with astonishing focus. She didn't just design the interface, she wrote thousands of lines of fake code, creating months' worth of fraudulent system logs that mimicked the activity of a real development team. Frank Miller, who had worked with top military experts, was amazed when Lily pointed out a minor flaw in the fake server's first layer of security. "If we make it too easy, she'll be suspicious," she explained. "The door has to look locked, but with a key she believes only she could find." That key was an artfully designed vulnerability, a piece of code in the fake operating system's kernel that, when analyzed by an expert, would look like a rudimentary programming error left by a careless engineer. If exploited, it would allow an attacker not only to access the entire source code of Prometheus, but also potentially activate a remote kill switch. It was the juiciest bait Nexus Dynamics could ever dream of. Everything was ready. It was now time for the hunter to begin his performance. The hardest part wasn't building the trap. It was living with the prey while setting it. Every evening, Jace returned to his penthouse where Cassandra, or Catherine, waited with a radiant smile and stories about preparing for the baby. He had to play the part of a happy man, a loving fiancé, all while knowing that her every touch, her every kiss was part of a plot to destroy him. It was a horrific form of psychological torture, but Jace turned it into the stage for the performance of his life. The first opportunity came on a Wednesday evening. Jace was on a video call with Catherine from his home office. He deliberately projected an image of being stressed and overworked before the launch. "Look at this. This is the new interface for the companion health app," he said, sharing his screen for a moment. He quickly turned it off, but it was too late. In those few short seconds, Catherine had seen something on his desktop. A yellow virtual sticky note with the words Prometheus Dev Server Temp Access, along with a user ID and a complex password string. "Oh, sorry," Jace said, feigning embarrassment. "My mind is a mess lately, too much to remember." On the other side of the screen, Catherine smiled gently. "It's okay, my love. You need to rest." But Jace, through the high-resolution camera, didn't miss it. Her eyes flashed for just a millisecond, a glint of triumph. The bait had been dropped. A few days later, Jace launched his next move to apply pressure. During a romantic dinner, he took Catherine's hand. "Catherine," he said, his voice full of a passion so real it was terrifying. "I've been thinking a lot. I don't want to wait anymore. I want us to get married before the Prometheus launch. I want you standing by my side as my wife when I change the world. Will you marry me next Friday?" Catherine appeared completely taken by surprise. She covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes glistening. "Oh, Jace, it's so fast. But of course I will. I will." She threw her arms around him, and Jace hugged her back, burying his face in her hair to hide the ice-cold look in his eyes. He could feel her joy, not the joy of a woman who had just been proposed to, but the joy of a secret agent who had just successfully completed her mission. Time was running out. With the login credentials in hand and a wedding fast approaching, the pressure on Catherine and her handlers to act immediately was now at its peak. The trap was set. The prey had seen the bait, and now Jace Donovan's entire world was holding its breath, waiting for the bite. The night before Judgment Day, Silicon Valley sank into sleep, sparkling under the lights like a giant circuit board. But in a few isolated spaces, no one was sleeping. This was the night of final moves, the night of waiting, and the night the betrayal would be complete. In her luxurious penthouse apartment, Catherine Vance, also known as Cassandra Reed, sat before her laptop. She believed she was in the safest of fortresses. She had enabled a multi-layered encrypted VPN routing her signal through 3 different countries. She felt like a ghost, an invisible entity holding the fate of an empire in her hands. She looked at the ID and password string Jace had accidentally revealed. How pathetic, she thought. A genius with machines, but a naive child when it comes to matters of the heart. She felt a venomous joy, the gloating satisfaction of someone about to settle her family's debt of honor. With her long fingers, she typed the login information into the Donovan Dynamics access portal. Access granted. A smug smile spread across Catherine's lips. She was in. Before her was what she and her conspirators at Nexus Dynamics had craved for so long: the entire source code repository for the Prometheus project. She quickly found the vulnerability Jace's team had deliberately planted. It looked exactly as they had expected: a fatal mistake, a back door left wide open. She carefully copied the malicious code and related technical documents, compressing them into an encrypted file. Then she opened a secure communication program, attached the file, and sent it to a single address. Before hitting send, she typed a short message, a victory call sign: "The bird is in the cage. He's vulnerable." She hit send. Job done. She leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes, and imagined tomorrow, the day she would become Mrs. Donovan, and the day Jace's empire would begin to crumble from within. At the same time, dozens of miles away, deep underground in the cold silence of the vault, a massive screen was mirroring Catherine's every action. "She's in," whispered an engineer from the Ghost team. Jace, Lily, and Frank stood there, watching in silence. They saw her cursor move. They saw her find the fake vulnerability. They saw her download the decoy file. Jace looked at his daughter. Lily was focused on another monitor, where streams of network data flowed like a river. "Message sent," Lily announced, her voice astonishingly calm. "Data packet is in transit. Destination confirmed. Nexus Dynamics' terminal server." Frank Miller nodded, a look of professional satisfaction on his face. "We have them," he said. "Irrefutable proof of an industrial espionage conspiracy. We've recorded the entire session, source IP, and have authenticated the recipient's identity." Jace felt no joy, only a cold emptiness. He was witnessing betrayal in real time, a slow-motion film of trust collapsing. He looked at Catherine's face on the monitor, at her smug smile, and saw only a stranger, an enemy. Meanwhile, in a lavish office in Beverly Hills, another part of the drama was reaching its conclusion. Dr. Sterling Finch was signing his name to a detailed medical report. He checked every word. Diagnosis: high risk of miscarriage due to severe psychological stress. Prognosis: requires absolute bed rest, avoid all agitation. This was their second ace, a perfect excuse for Catherine to disappear with a hefty alimony settlement after the wedding and the tragic miscarriage occurred. Everything was perfectly arranged. He placed the report in a sealed envelope, ready for tomorrow. Back in the vault, Jace turned to his team. "Save everything. Encrypt and back it up in 3 different locations. I want a full presentation ready by morning." He looked at Frank and Lily. The hunt was over. Now it was time to prepare the stage. The night was fading. All the actors knew their lines. All the props were in place. The stage was set. All that was left was for the curtain to fall. June 14th. This was supposed to be Jace Donovan's wedding day. He was supposed to be standing at the altar, exchanging rings with the woman he believed was carrying his future. Instead, he was standing on a different stage, in front of thousands of people, preparing for a completely different ceremony, a public unmasking. The auditorium of the Silicon Valley Convention Center was packed. Investors, top tech journalists, competitors, all were here to witness the birth of Prometheus, the project said to redefine the healthcare industry. The air was buzzing with anticipation. In the front row, Catherine Vance, in her role as Cassandra Reed, sat resplendent in a designer dress, looking every bit the part of the tech industry's first lady. Her smile was both proud and gentle. She believed that in a few hours, she would have it all. In a corner of the room, Frank Miller stood, as large and still as a boulder, a discreet communication earpiece in his ear. Beside him, Lily Donovan sat quietly, her hands on a tablet, her face expressionless. They were the only ones in the room who knew that the product launch was merely the prelude. The main performance was about to begin. The lights dimmed. A single spotlight hit Jace as he walked onto the stage. Thunderous applause erupted. He smiled, a calm and powerful smile. He began his speech. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen." His voice echoed through the hall. "Today, we are here to talk about the future. We talk about technology, about data, but above all, we talk about trust. For years, Donovan Dynamics has operated on one core principle. The truth is in the data. Data helps us build stronger bridges, safer cars, and today, a system that can save human lives." Jace walked across the stage, his eyes scanning the crowd, and paused on Catherine for a moment. "But trust is a double-edged sword. We trust in our systems. We trust in our colleagues. We trust in the ones we love. And when that trust is misplaced, the consequences can be devastating. That is why, more than innovation, the most important value we pursue is transparency. Catherine felt a vague chill. Something was off in his tone. But she dismissed it. It was just nerves before a big event. On the giant screen behind Jace, the countdown for the product demo began. 10, 9, 8, Jace finished his speech. And now, without further ado, let's witness the future. Let's witness Prometheus. 3, 2, 1, 0. Applause broke out, but it immediately died into confused silence. The screen didn't display the sleek interface of Prometheus. It went black for a second, then lit up with the image of a login portal. The same login portal Catherine had used last night. Catherine froze. The smile on her lips was cemented in place. On the screen, the cursor moved on its own, typing in her user ID and password. The words "access granted" appeared in green. A murmur rippled through the auditorium. Next, the screen displayed a stylized world map. A glowing red line lit up, tracing a path from the location of Catherine's apartment through multiple countries and ending at a single point, the headquarters of Nexus Dynamics. Catherine began to breathe heavily. She turned to look for Frank Miller, but he was no longer there. And then, the fatal blow was delivered. The encrypted message she had sent appeared, decrypted and magnified to fill the entire screen. Each word like a death sentence. The bird is in the cage. He's vulnerable. A collective gasp erupted from the crowd. Journalists grabbed their cameras, flashes firing nonstop. Catherine's perfect face was now ashen white. The smugness was gone, replaced only by raw panic and horror as she realized she wasn't the hunter. She was the prey. But Jace wasn't finished. The final screen showed a video. Dr. Sterling Finch, sitting in his office, speaking to a person he didn't know was Frank Miller. His voice trembling, he confessed the entire conspiracy, the fake pregnancy, the falsified medical reports, and the role of Nexus Dynamics. That's when Catherine completely fell apart. The charade had been mercilessly torn apart before the eyes of the entire world. Jace Donovan stood there, calm in the eye of the storm. He took the microphone once more. His voice no longer held warmth, only the steel of justice. At Donovan Dynamics, we believe in transparency, he said, repeating his earlier line, but now it carried an entirely new meaning. Today, we are not just launching a new technology, we are launching a new standard of integrity. Two security officers in black suits moved professionally and quietly to approach Catherine. There was no struggle, no screaming. There was only the silence of humiliation as she was escorted from the auditorium, walking past hundreds of phones recording her downfall. The game was over. Checkmate. As the doors of the auditorium closed behind Catherine Vance, a true earthquake was just beginning. News of the Nexus Dynamics conspiracy spread at the speed of light. When the stock market opened on Monday morning, Nexus shares plummeted, losing over 40% of their value in just a few hours. Conversely, shares in Donovan Dynamics soared, not just because of the success of the Prometheus project, but because of something even more valuable, the public's faith in its leader's integrity. Jace hadn't just launched a product, he had cleansed a corner of Silicon Valley. But before the dawn of a new chapter could begin, Jace needed to confront the ghosts of the past one last time. In a sterile, windowless security conference room, Jace sat opposite Catherine. Frank Miller stood in the corner, silent as a statue. The gorgeous dress and confident smile were gone. Catherine wore a simple outfit. Her face was blank, lifeless. Why? Jace asked, his voice holding no anger, only an endless exhaustion. Catherine, that is your real name, isn't it? Catherine Vance, daughter of Robert Vance, CEO of Vance Innovations. At the sound of that name, a flicker of life returned to Catherine's dead eyes. You know, she whispered. I know everything, Jace replied. I know about the plan, about Nexus, about all of it. What I don't know is why this deception. Why a child? Why me? Catherine looked up, and for the first time, Jace saw something other than deceit. He saw pain, a pain that had been compressed and twisted into hatred. Because you took everything from me, she said, her voice trembling. 7 years ago, you didn't just compete with my father, you destroyed him. Your company, with its efficient algorithms and ruthless strategies, bankrupted my family's company, Vance Innovations. My father lost everything, his career, his honor, and finally, his health. He died of a heart attack just 1 year later, broken and humiliated. She looked directly at Jace, her eyes now brimming with tears. I wanted you to feel that. The feeling of hoping for something beautiful, a family, a future, and then watching it get torn away and collapse before your eyes. The baby was the perfect way to hurt you, because you wouldn't just lose money, you would lose a dream. Jace listened, and for a moment, he didn't feel hatred. He only felt a deep sympathy for the woman who had let her past poison her soul. Your father and I were business competitors, Jace said softly. That is the nature of the market, but I never attacked his family. You chose revenge instead of building something of your own. That is your failure, Catherine, not mine. Catherine didn't answer. The truth in Jace's words was too heavy for her to confront. A moment later, the door opened and federal agents walked in. The game was truly over. 6 months later, the storm has completely passed. Catherine Vance and Dr. Finch are facing federal charges for fraud and industrial espionage. Nexus Dynamics, after an extensive investigation and numerous lawsuits, was forced to declare restructuring. Its shadow over Silicon Valley had faded forever. But at Donovan Dynamics, a new era had begun. Jace and Lily no longer spent time looking at the past. Instead, they were building the future. On their laptop screen was a new project, a nonprofit app called Guardian. It's a gamified educational platform designed to teach children around the world about cybersecurity, critical thinking, and how to recognize misinformation. Jace had turned his painful experience into a tool to protect the next generation. Look at this, Dad, Lily said, pointing to a piece of code. I added an algorithm that can detect logical contradictions in news sources. It will warn the user if a story has inconsistent facts. I'm calling it the truth filter. Jace smiled and ruffled his daughter's hair. That's a brilliant idea, Lily. You know, the best truth filter in the world is our own brain, as long as we bother to use it. They worked together in a peaceful silence. A deep understanding had formed between father and daughter, stronger than any firewall. The story of Jace and Lily isn't just a tale of tech espionage or betrayal. It's a profound lesson for our 21st century. In a world of deepfakes, virtual identities, and perfectly curated stories on social media, what do we take away? That lesson can be summarized in one principle: trust, but verify. Trust your intuition, trust in love, trust in good things. But never let hope become a blindfold, causing you to ignore the data, the facts that are right in front of you. Apply the critical thinking you use at work to your personal life. Teach our children not just how to use technology, but how to question it. Because in the end, a stable relationship, a happy family, or a successful empire isn't built on a flawless facade. It's built on truth, even when that truth is sharp and hard to accept. True strength isn't found in never being deceived, but in having the courage to face the truth, learn from it, and together build something even stronger than before. Thank you for listening.